Rand Pauluses
and minuses.
Welcome to the Lions of Liberty podcast. Here is your host, your guide, your shining beacon of liberty, Mark Claire.
We are back, of course, here in the Lions of Liberty studios, and as you heard at the top there, this is another edition of Rand Pluses and Minuses. So, of course, I've got our resident Randalist, Rand analyst, whatever you want to call it. Anything else you want to call yourself? Brian McWilliams.
No, you hit them all. You hit all the big points.
All right.
You touched all the bases on that one.
Brian, are you aware of what episode of this program this is that we're in right now?
I saw you type it in.
See, you're not supposed to.
I do. This is episode 155.
All right, great. And do you know what that means? Do you know where they can find the show notes for this episode?
I believe they can find it at lionsofliberty.com/155.
That is true. They can also find all your Rand Paul articles at...
I was drinking. At lionsofliberty.com/Rand.
Drinking? What do you think this is? Libertarians in living rooms drinking liquor?
Well, as I mentioned, it's
I'm drinking too, guys. Screw it. Because we've been nursing this bottle of Old Smuggler over the course of the last few months, I would say, in our debate shows. And, we got to polish this thing off.
We got to kill this thing up. Well, also, since it's fall, I was like, oh, this weather's great. It's finally chilly. I can wear this, I can wear layers. And then I'm like, immediately, I got a little tickle in my throat. Throat's a little sore, getting sick.
For the people that live in the rest of the country or the real world or whatever you want to call places that aren't Southern California, our definition of chilly is about a crisp 65, just so everybody
I think it wasn't even there. I think it was like 67 today.
Yeah, and it felt legitimately cold. After weeks of 80s and 90s in October, 65 feels cold. I don't care.
It's true. It's sad. Our red blood cells count has gotten lower than Rand's polling numbers. Right into
a low blow right from the start.
Back in.
So why don't we start there? What's going on with the latest polls after the last GOP debate, where we can talk about this too, where Rand Paul got the least amount of speaking time. Yep. It felt like a lot less. We talked about this on the reaction show, episode 153. We'll post that in the show notes as well. But
I cannot believe that. There was a movie called Ice Pirates where time is shooting by, and it's it was really this long. It was really 50 years. Oh, Ice Pirates, check it out. We'll link to it.
Guess we're linking to that in the show notes.
Oh, it's the best movie ever.
I'm pretty sure our show notes contain more obscure pop culture references than political.
That's what I bring here. The analysis anybody can do, but the pop culture references, the really obscure ones. Which
anybody can talk about Rand Paul, but who can talk about Ice Pirates?
And I owned it on Beta. Betamax. Look it up, kids.
Do you have a Betamax player?
I had a Betamax player.
Do you have one now?
My dad was in production, so he was on the forefront of technology. Because remember, back in those days, Beta was like the thing. It was better than VHS, but they lost out on the wars because porn chose VHS. That's a true story.
Nothing's better than VHS.
Nothing's better than porn.
Free market decided, and the porn was the free
fantastic film. VHS. Oh, no, I'm thinking of UHF. Never mind.
UHF. No, VHS.
There's also a film called VHS. That's not good. That's a horror movie.
No, you got trouble. Anywho, time seemed to move in bizarre ways because that did not seem like 6 minutes and 15 seconds.
It felt like he had 30 seconds, right? Yeah. I mean, and half the times he came in were when he had to butt in. And when, again, we don't need to rehash this too much. People can go back and listen to our reaction show just 2 episodes back in your iTunes feed.
Yeah. But you know what it is? He spent a lot of time talking about Medicare. And
a lot of time being
stretched out for 2 minutes because it was bandied about and coming back to him, and so it seemed like that was in the beginning. We forgot about it because then they ignored him for a good hour, I think.
Well, here's the thing about his Medicare comments in the speech. He basically lived in reality or tried to present reality by talking about the subject. Look, it's unsustainable. Yeah, they started this program and it had a certain amount of people putting money into it, and then the population boomed. That's why they're called boomers. I think, right? So, and it's just not sustainable in the way that our population is increasing, and it's really a system like that is never really sustainable. He didn't go full Ron and call it a Ponzi scheme or anything like that, but he's just being realistic and saying, look, no matter what your opinion is on the program, it's impossible to sustain at its current rate.
The only way we could legitimately sustain it is if the baby boomer generation was titled as thus, because we would just put them all in like an island and then blow them up.
You're not advocating. You're not advocating mass
I'm not advocating
genocide
that. But I'm saying that's the only way that it would work out, because that would take, okay, now there's enough for everybody. Otherwise, we're screwed. So unless you're exploding them, we're done. There's no.
All right. Hashtag Randy Pants. Hashtag mass genocide.
Hey, we got a hashtag
from the Lions
Randy
of Liberty
Pants
podcast. We did. We got it. Hashtag Randy Pants. So it's not quite trending yet, but we do get the occasional Randy Pants hashtag. If you're listening to this program and you like what you're hearing, why don't you tweet about it? Why don't you tweet to us at Lions of Liberty? And why don't you hashtag Randy Pants if you're talking about the show? Because we're going to goddamn get this thing trending if it's the last thing we do.
We Randy Pantsin' and dancing all night. So yes, they're the polls. I'll get back to that.
Okay.
So
5 minutes later,
Howard Snowden, friend of the website.
Sadly, no relation that we know of to Edward Snowden, but still a good guy.
He should be bragging about it to get laid. That's what I'd be doing.
Obviously, I would say I was Edward Snowden.
Clearly,
and I had to change my name to Howie to fool the feds.
Posting on the dark web, seeing who'd come over. Anyway, so he posted it. So it's 3 different polls. It was like 2%, 2%, 3%, and these are
3%. All right.
Well, these are regional polls. I think it was New Hampshire that he's polling.
Well, I think that the NBC one was a national. Well, that makes sense. These
yeah,
a little more.
The national ones I saw was 2%. Now that's still above Christie. It's above Kasich. So hopefully they cut some of the weed out.
I mean, to put it in perspective, almost nobody but Trump and Carson are polling well.
No, exactly.
I mean, are they the only ones in double digits? I guess Cruz I could actually look at the poll.
Cruz is in double digits. I think he was like 11, right around 11%.
Oh wow, Cruz is doing that well, huh?
Yeah, the last time I saw it, he's doing pretty well. Oh. So here's a little foreshadowing for you about Ted Cruz, because we're gonna circle back to him later. And Ted and Rand, they laid off each other at the debates. Now, you may have read
they laid off each other. What is that? They fired each other from their respective jobs?
What does
that mean?
They were all fired from the politicians. No, they literally didn't go after each other. And in fact, they complimented each other. I believe Ted Cruz complimented Rand's tax plan. Rand complimented Ted Cruz on something else.
He said, thanks for, sponsoring my audit the Fed bill, supporting it, or what have you.
Right.
And this is after we had seen some tension between these two a few weeks ago. Rand Paul had said Ted Cruz is done in the Senate, basically referencing Ted's, I guess, harsh personality towards his colleagues and that no one's going to take him seriously anymore. And yet suddenly, as you pointed out in last week's article, which of course we shall link to at the show notes at lionsofliberty.com/155, as you pointed out in last week's column, what did you point out?
Oh, I pointed out the fact that I believe that there was a backroom deal. And here's why.
Your little conspiracy theory.
There was a reporter. Right. This is my conspiracy theory, which has since been proven. So
I don't know about proven, but substantiated,
pretty conclusive,
circumstantially.
So I'll lay it out for the people. We're not even going to foreshadow. We're going to do it right now. So here's what I wrote about last week: is that a reporter had asked Rand Paul, "Hey, this and that," and she wanted to get into Ted Cruz because he was vying for the Liberty vote along with Rand. Rand refused to acknowledge the fact that the question was being asked, refused to talk about him, and got angry at the journalist for asking about it. And I said to myself, that's odd. Shouldn't he want to attack Ted Cruz? Because they're going for the same votes in theory.
And merely a week before, he had said very not unkind, but,
right.
I guess realistic things that people weren't going to take Ted Cruz seriously in the Senate anymore.
Right. So it's one of those things that make you go,
Things that you go,
So we see that. Then we see the debate comes out. And now they're not saying anything. Now they're buddy-buddy. They're buddy-buddy and they're complimenting each other. Then, flash forward to our first legitimate item of this podcast, to the filibuster.
Legitimate was everything. Nothing we talked about was legitimate until now.
Like most of my children.
All right. So what's going on with this filibuster? Now Rand referenced this filibuster in the debate. It seemed like a good idea to say, oh, by the way, I'm going to filibuster the debt tomorrow. So
one of the things
see you then. Tune in. Yeah, tune in to C-SPAN.
Right. It's like a commercial at the end of a program. It's like, coming up next. So, Rand did the coming up next promotion because the drones filibuster, massive coverage. Everybody loved him. Loved it for the NSA filibuster. So look, fantastic.
Every day we're bustering.
So he's got that going for him. Great tactic. Then he goes out there and filibusters for what the media incorrectly was saying was 19 minutes. So everyone, that filibuster's busted.
Oh, no.
By who? You know who.
Well, there were some obstacles, I guess, put in his way by his former friend, former ally, current somewhat ally, frenemy, Mr. Mitch McConnell, who Rand Paul endorsed once upon a time.
Unbelievable.
And now they are, I guess that little, I don't know if the alliance is over. I think there were always, what's the term?
Terse allies?
Bedfellows? Something? Strange bedfellows?
Strange bedfellows.
Sure. I mean, I think Rand knew he couldn't just be a total maverick against McConnell to in the Senate if he wanted to get some things done. And, at the same time, I think McConnell recognized he needed some of Rand Paul's people to perhaps, win his Senate seat against the primary challenger.
Young blood to stay alive.
Exactly. But now that's all said and done, we're back to reality here, and they're not exactly buds.
Yeah, not buds. So McConnell, he had gone out and he had put a motion in a days earlier, basically, which screwed Rand Paul
Wednesday
out.
Night while Rand Paul was at the debate.
Right.
That's the key.
Sneaky.
They said that they got the major opponents of it were Ted Cruz and Rand Paul, and I guess Rubio. I'm not sure about Rubio, but anyway, all these guys that at least talk against the deficit and then the debt deal, these guys were all not present at the Senate when McConnell basically put forward the motions to begin the vote. So it was too late, I guess, for Rand to actually do a legit filibuster.
Right,
which would sum it up?
Yeah, which would delay the motion to get into the votes.
And believe me, if there are any Senate procedural experts out there, this is a very cursory analysis. If I don't want to get 100 emails like, oh no, actually it was Senate. I do want 100 emails.
I'd be flattered to get 100
That's
emails.
True. This was Senate Rule B61C, and the precedent was set in 1963. All right, whatever. The point is,
episode 461.
There were some shenanigans, and Rand couldn't do a full, I guess, legit filibuster as he's done in the past.
Right, exactly.
Issues.
So instead, what they did, Rand went up. He did 19 minutes. Then he took a break, and Teddy Cruz comes up and relieves Rand as he's done in the past. So clearly, they're best buds again for about an hour and 20 minutes.
That's a long potty break.
It was a pretty long. No, he spoke for a long time. Then Rand came out again and kind of wrapped it up.
So they knowing they can't actually stop it, they just wanted to have some time to basically register their protest publicly.
Right, exactly right. So, what do you think? Was this a successful filibuster, quote unquote filibuster for you?
Well, I mean, he didn't stop anything, but hey, at least let's
say not taking it literally.
At least the NSA one actually did stop. In theory, stop spying for 2 days.
It did. The Patriot Act, yeah.
I doubt it actually stopped anything.
I'm calling it the NSA one, but it was to filibuster the Patriot Act, which did work. It killed the Patriot Act, but then a bill came in right after it, which I'm blanking on the name of right now.
It killed the Patriot Act in the sense of the way a zombie is killed seemingly for a few moments before it gets up and begins to eat your brains once again. Right. I believe that was the USA Freedom Act.
There it is, USA Freedom Act.
Wonderful sounding.
Arguably worse, by the way, because it didn't have the expirations put into place. Like the Patriot Act had built-in expiration dates on certain measures.
They always had to come back to it and prove it again.
And the USA Freedom Act, half of them don't have those measures, so it's even worse. Are you
telling me that you're opposed to freedom in the USA?
I'm not opposed to freedom. I'm opposed to acts and actors, because we live in L.A., and I'm opposed to those people. They annoy the living hell out of me.
I thought you were an actor. When did you move out here to be an actor?
I was an actor at one time.
/writer,
people on the East Coast. I walked in Big Bird one time. That wasn't acting, but I was tall enough to do it, and they needed an emergency fill-in.
We should spend a whole podcast telling your Big Bird story.
Brian Big Bird. You know what we should? One day, maybe for just a fun podcast when we're bored. Maybe over the holidays we don't feel like doing a real one. I'll reenact my Big Bird walk-in story at Sesame Place.
Maybe.
It is a hell of a story, people. I kick a kid right in the stomach.
Give these people more reasons to subscribe to this show, and we just did. If you're not looking forward to that,
you have to subscribe.
We don't even want you listening.
Yep. Anyway, getting back to the point. So this filibuster, so we're saying the filibuster, it didn't actually result in anything being filibustered because it could not possibly work. So a lot of people had said, like a guy today had said, this is just grandstanding by Randstanding.
Randstanding, hashtag Randstanding, hashtag Randstanding.
Hashtag Randstanding. But you know what? I don't have a problem with that. Do you care if it's quote unquote grandstanding?
Well, this is like the whole thing. This is whole thing months ago from, what's that? Idiot Peter King when he was like, you got Rand Paul over here talking about these things and posting the YouTube videos of his speeches to get the donations. It's like, okay, yeah. I mean, you can call any political speech grandstanding. He's trying to call out a very important issue about this ever increasing debt that always gets approved to raise the debt ceiling every single time. There's only a very few people who are out there trying to stop it. He's one of them, and if they're not going to let him actually stop it, then why you should talk about it as much as possible and bring as much attention to it as much as possible. That's why you were sent to Washington by the Liberty constituency. So
damn well right, exactly.
Rand stand away.
Rand stand away and grandstand. You could use 7
I'm Rand standing away.
Yeah, so I agree. It's for a good cause. He's raising awareness for the budget, and even more helpful, it got even more awareness raised because Senator Mike Lee from Utah posted a video of Rand talking about Social Security. What does he say? It was specifically about how people were sneaking in the night to steal your money from Social Security, which is true. This is what's happening. They're taking money out of Social Security, which is your money, and it was posted on his Facebook page and viewed 18 million times.
Wow.
Just like if you know,
good.
1/8 of those
slightly
people
better
voted,
numbers than we're doing right now.
If they'd poll any of those people, they'd probably be all for Rand Paul.
Maybe.
That's only 1 million over out
I mean, it might be viewed by progressive that just hate him. They're like, no, debt forever.
Debt
Raise
forever,
the roof.
freedom
Raise
never.
the ret roof.
Yeah.
The ret roof? Retro.
Rutro.
Raise the debt roof forever. So, at the end of the day, you tied in the Halloween theme a little bit, which is always nice. You, instead of you still gave a plus or minus, but you asked whether this filibuster at the end of the day was a trick or a treat. I'm not even sure which is worse, which is better.
God,
because I like tricks and treats, so.
I say, I said it's a treat. / Paulus.
Okay, a treat / pause. So I guess a trick would have been a minus.
A trick would have been a minus,
tricking us into
because a trick would have been like, it didn't accomplish.
Because when you show up at the door, you want the treat. So if what you get is the trick, that's like, has anyone ever given a trick? Or
the trick was what Mitch McConnell pulled. That was the trick.
Aha, that was the trick.
Evil went as himself for Halloween, scared the hell out of everyone.
Well, I mean, the only flaw was that I guess Rand Paul promoted a filibuster at the debate, and then it wasn't really seen as a real filibuster. So
is it disingenuous? Because he must have. Well, I guess he didn't know he was at the debate. So people are pillaring him for this, but he didn't know when he talked about doing it.
No, of course not.
I mean, he touted it later on social media after he did know, but
did he?
I'm not sure. I have to track that. I'm not sure.
Anyway, I mean, he's like the filibuster king, and compared to his others, this was a flop, I guess. But I mean, I don't really blame him for that. So, Paulus. I want to see more filibustering. I want to see more standing up there as long as possible. If you're not going to do well in the polls and you're not going to do this and that, get up there and talk about these issues. And he's doing that. That's why you're there.
Right. And, more importantly, a lot of these senators, I want to see more senators doing this, even if it's for issues I don't agree with, because at least people will know about them. At least it's educating people, because otherwise senators go, they cast their vote in silence. Their constituents have no idea most of the time what they're doing, unless people make a stink about it and say, call your senator. Maybe this will give us some insight into what's happening there all the time. Or, draw some attention to the legislative process. Draw some attention to the bills that are going on.
And I like the fact that he's pointing out that this is essentially stealing from Social Security, like we talked about on the debate show last week. And I mentioned that my dad talked about, that's my money. I paid into it. I should get it back. And yeah, it is our money. They do take it. They do say that you're all going to get it back. But the reality is that politicians keep going further into debt, borrowing more money, but they also borrow money from the Social Security Trust Fund, which isn't even a real fund. There's no actual bank or pillowcase where this money is. It's just kind of something in the numbers they move around. But regardless, part of this bill they passed, the debt ceiling raise, was taking more money from that supposed fund, $150 billion. So when we talk about protecting the elderly and protecting the people that need that money the most currently right now, well, they're taken from that fund. And I'm glad that they added that sort of, I call it spin, it's reality. They added that sort of dose of
yeah. And even if you did get all your money back, it's still taking a hit because it's losing. You're not getting the same money back. You're getting money 35, 40 years later than when you put it in. Of course, there's going to be inflation. It's going to devalue. So it's much better if you just get to keep your money.
Really getting interest on it.
Then you can invest it. Yeah, you're not getting interest on it.
Or you can decide you don't want to live till you're old and you want to spend it now.
Right.
I don't care. The point is it's yours. And if the government wants to run a retirement program, I'm not necessarily against them running it. Just make it voluntary.
Make it opt in.
But this wouldn't work if you had to opt in, because they're not just spending what they're taking in. They're not just saving your money for you. They're taking it, spending it on whatever the hell they want, going into way more debt anyway. And then whatever crumbs you get back are not worth anything as to what they could be if you had even held your money under your mattress. I'm willing to bet you'd have more at the end of the day. But I'm not doing any math there.
Probably right.
So again, hold the anger emails back. Actually, if you saved every penny of theirs for every day of your life and got it at a 2.3 interest rate in a CD fund. Okay, we don't need those emails.
No.
But you can send them anyway, because we like attention.
If you've got financial advice, we'll take it.
We will take financial advice. That's one thing we can totally use. Should we do a real easy one real quick? Should we talk about Randy Pence and his little Halloween costume?
Yeah, we can post a picture. It was cute.
Anytime we can post a picture, it's nice. So what did Rand? Rand had actually a Halloween costume, which is nice to see him getting in the spirit. And he posted a little picture on his Twitter. And what is he for the?
He was the national debt.
National debt.
He wore a not just a t-shirt, a turtleneck. Who the hell wears turtleneck?
That's exactly what I was going to point out.
What year are we in, Rand?
Apparently, the national debt wears a turtleneck.
Maybe he's going back to.
It's like
it's probably the last year we didn't have debt was when people were wearing turtlenecks, and that's what he's making. Maybe it's like a little side point of his, but. Anyway, it's.
I don't think I've seen anyone wear a turtleneck besides Rand Paul in the last decade.
No, he's the first one.
It's not the first time, by the way. He's a serial turtleneck wearer.
He loves.
I'm going to Google Rand Paul turtleneck.
#Rand turtleneck.
But so whatever. It's kind of cheesy. He's totally a dork, but hey, whatever. It's fine. It's funny. Paulus, easy Paulus.
Paulus. And people liked it on social media. People were retweeting it. It was a good time.
All right.
It was a good time.
So, yeah, he gets a plus for that. It's an easy one. A slam dunker.
Well, this is another easy one I was going to say.
Hold on. Before we move on, I just want you to see. Well, I'm just going to post this straight up.
Oh, my God, the collage of Rand.
When you Google Rand Paul and turtlenecks, there is just unlimited amounts of photos of him wearing turtlenecks.
Endless.
Actually, here, now he's in suits. So, just the top.
Yeah, but still an impressive number.
Actually, a few of these look like the same picture.
They're probably all the same.
Whatever. We'll post a Rand Paul turtleneck.
There's at least 3 different turtlenecks, not counting the Halloween turtleneck. 4, actually. 4 different turtlenecks, not counting the Halloween turtleneck. So it's 5 total if you're counting at home. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like count on count. All right.
1 turtleneck. 2 turtlenecks.
Here's an easy one. Rand, he was just interviewed on Fox News.
Hey, let's circle back to this Ted Cruz thing. So if they really do, since we never really addressed the...
I thought we were done with this.
We were, but we're coming back because that's what we do. Because the old smuggler veered us off. But we never gave it a plus or minus.
So, well,
if they do, if your theory, which seems to be substantiated by the recent actions both in the debate and in the Senate, is true about this little alliance, you got Ted Cruz at 10%. And I think almost all of that 10% is how he went off on the NBC moderates and just told them this is stupid. And he deserves a bump for that because that was great.
Bump.
Yeah.
So if this alliance is actually what's happening, would you give this a plus or a minus?
You know what? Here's the thing with that.
I know what you wrote in your column.
In a broader political sense, I guess yes. But as far as, in the current time when Paul's running for, he's trying to get in presidential office, there's polls going on right now. There's debates that he's got to get into, and they're going for the same voter base. I give it a minus.
Ooh, a minus.
I know they say, okay, you know what, why? We shouldn't attack each other, because of ba. But look, when Ted Cruz is now polling at 10% and Rand is at 2%, clearly Rand needs to do something. And being friends with Ted Cruz and not going after him in the debates and pointing out the flaws in his thinking ain't helping anybody.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to give this. I refuse to give a push because I don't like doing that. So
I gave 2 pushes this last week.
I'll just give it I'll give it a minus. Screw it.
I thought you were going to go the other way with me.
Because Ron Paul would never have not that we should always compare him to Ron Paul, but I don't know.
You can't help it. Ron Paul is the ultimate libertarian.
I mean, if Ted Cruz says something terrible against the war on drugs, is he going to, come on the other way against it? I don't know.
I'll give Ted Cruz a plus if he comes out against the war on drugs.
No, I mean the other way around. I mean... the issues they've discussed so far since this alliance has sort of come up has been about audit the Fed and about the debt. Easy stuff.
They
easy
didn't
stuff
get into foreign policy or marijuana. No, exactly. They didn't get into that in the debates either.
Yeah.
Because the debates were just a complete S show.
I see nothing wrong with a let's play nice thing, so I don't know how official whatever alliance is going on right now is, but... Whatever. I give all political behind-the-scenes machinations
Would you call this
a minus.
Alliance of Liberty?
Ooh. Well,
that's a good pun.
If you think Ted Cruz is a liberty guy, then yes.
That's an old
Some
smuggler
people
pun.
do.
A lot of people do, apparently, because he's getting a lot of support from the libertarian community.
to the libertarian community? Is he really?
Well,
I know Jason Stapleton.
He was at the
likes Ted
Liberty
Cruz.
Conference. Yeah, there you go. He
doesn't say he's going to vote for him, but he thinks he's okay. Basically.
Well, look, again, in a broader political spectrum sense, we would probably list Ted Cruz as one of the not good guys, but better guys.
Less bad guys?
Less bad, yeah.
He's very good on some things.
Right.
And very bad on some
And very bad on other ones. But he is better than
But most people are really bad on everything.
Right, exactly. So, don't take this as me saying Ted Cruz should be crucified and burned at the stake.
Oh, let's just edit that into the cold open so people think that's what that should happen. You want to crucify him.
The old smuggler, baby. All these puns are sponsored by Old Smuggler brand blended whiskey.
Two can play at the pun game.
You can buy it for $10 at your local, I don't even know, Quickie Mart.
Quickie Mart? Is that real?
Let's say it's real.
Okay.
All right. Next topic. This one, we talked about pushes. This one, I'm going
to rake you over the coals in a second.
Well, all right.
Not really.
You can rake me over the coals, but I'll tell you why you get a push.
My coals aren't very hot, and I don't rake very strongly, so it's going to be okay.
Just lukewarm.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rand came out.
Ooh, that coal is a little hot. Anyway, I'm going to keep walking. That was fine.
Moving on. So Rand said no ground troops in Syria, right? Great. This is an interview he just did recently.
Yeah, please, no.
Written interview. So
yet, since he said that, or maybe right around then, there are now ground troops being sent to Syria.
Oh, yeah. Well,
but it's like 20 of them. It's like 20 special ops forces.
More than that. I'm sure it's
I thought it was literally like 20.
Well, it could be 20, but I don't think that's going to do much. I mean, if movies have led me to believe certain things, then even 5 should be able to do it. We should ask Jesse the Body Ventura. He was a SEAL. Ask him. Get Delta Force Chuck Norris.
I'm working on it. Working on Ventura. I haven't contacted Chuck Norris yet, but maybe I should.
Well, the question is that if they're going to send in the Delta Force, why would they even tell us about it? If it was only 20 guys, they wouldn't say anything. They'd just be like, hey, guys, get in the chopper, go cut some people's heads off.
Get in the chopper, cut the heads off.
Go put some bullets in some eyeballs, and then come back and don't tell anybody.
Bring me Assad.
So they wouldn't say we're sending troops if it's 20 people.
So, but even sending the small, whatever amount of special ops in there, I feel like that is
it's just a tip.
So ineffective that it's like, all right, so what if Russia, who's currently bombing in Syria, happens to bomb on one of our special operations guys, and then suddenly we say, American blood spilled, we gotta send them all in, and suddenly we're fighting Russia and Syria, and that just sounds like a effing mess.
Effing mess.
And Hillary Clinton would be all for that, as would, who else is super, obviously Trump would be all for it. All these candidates are very pro-war with Russia.
Well, no, Trump. One thing I will give: Trump is actually not bad on this. Trump, at least.
I thought he was all about it.
No, he's
all about Iran. He's all about war with Iran.
Is he? I don't even.
No, he is.
Maybe with Iran.
He said he would drop a nuke on Iran.
But
I think I'm confusing his Iran with his Russia. Maybe he is. Well, no, he said he would go like, I'll stand up to Putin and tell you.
He's talking about like standing up to Putin at the negotiating table. But he's said some really good things about. No, this is ridiculous. Maybe it's not coming from a principled stance, but talking about Obama in Syria and all these politicians wanting to get involved there and start World War III and how it's a terrible idea. So Trump gets a palump.
Palump? I like it.
A Trump or minus.
Palumpanophagus.
Yeah, so Trump gets a plus for this one.
I'm trying to think who else wants to go to war. Anyway, long story short, so Rand opposed the ground troops, which, hey, great. Right? I'll give him a half Paulus for that.
Okay. Now, why can't he get the full?
Well, here's why. Because in the remainder of this quote that it was from this Iowa account, it was a Des Moines Register. So that came out, and then I'm reading this quote, and I'm like, okay, great. And I'm reading lower in the quote, and then he goes on to say, after saying no boots on the ground in Syria, he goes, you know what, but the radical group still needs to be fought, but not by our military, not by groups on the ground, but we should help the Kurds fight. If he was president, he'd help the Kurds fight.
Like give him piggyback rides?
He would? How?
That's what he says.
Is he doing a Lindsey Graham here? Would he parachute into Kurdistan area of Iraq and
can only hope a knife in his mouth?
He tosses one Kurd a knife, tosses another one a grenade. And he's like, oh, shit, I pulled the pin.
I would hope that you just teach them Kung Fu, like in Enter the Dragon. You walk in and just be Rand Paul teaching a giant courtyard full of Kurds to punch.
If Rand Paul actually goes and trains the Kurds karate or Kung Fu, that's a plus.
This is tofu.
I will send him the max campaign donation if he does that.
$2,500. I agree.
So you want my money, Rand? You got $5,000 sitting right here in this room waiting for you.
But sadly, that's not what he's doing. What he's talking about, because he said this earlier, and I linked to this. He said earlier that he would be for arming the Kurds. Ooh. Now, what's your take on that?
I don't like arming anybody except myself.
And I would be in agreement with you. Because it's like, if you go, and what's weird is Rand Paul, of all people, who has said on the debate stage in front of an audience of millions in the first debate, saying that, blowback exists. And he went into detail saying every time we provided arms to another fighting force, especially in the Middle East, it has always come back to bite us. Al-Qaeda, ISIS, check. That was supporting Syrian refugees. Check. That's two. That way he wants to arm the Kurds. Now, look. Sure, maybe the Kurds, we say, okay, well, they're not so bad. They're nice guys. But how many times the political allegiances? We thought everybody was a nice guy when we were arming them before. And it's always come back to bite us right in the ass.
I don't think anyone ever thought any of these guys were nice guys.
but why?
Maybe the American public.
Then why the hell does he want to arm them?
Exactly. So, I don't know. So you're going to give this statement a
push. Because that second statement is a minus. The first part was a plus, Paula. So, you mush it together and it's a push.
See, I don't like it. It's too wishy-washy.
Lay it on me, baby. Rake me over this lukewarm.
Minus!
Oh, snap!
You get a full minus. You don't get to start a good statement and then basically contradict it just because you happen to think this one group would be better off being armed by us or trained by us or whatever, especially when you were just on the Senate floor talking about the debt ceiling and how much freaking money we're spending, and you want to send it to the Kurds?
Well, Rand Paul does want to increase the budget.
The Kurds?
$190 billion.
I'm just like saying Kurds.
Kurds! Hey, you know what this is? You put this statement together, it's a one sentence earlier. One sentence earlier.
Arm the Kurds.
It's a classic. It's a classic Rand Paul one sentence earlier.
For newer fans to the show, maybe you just heard my interview with John McAfee the other day, and now you're like, wow, we cannot miss the kind of compelling things these guys are talking about
was a hell of an
on this show. Thank you very much.
If you guys listening to this, listen to John McAfee's interview because it is awesome. He's got my vote.
It's a doozy.
He's got my vote.
His F-bombs don't get edited out.
No.
That's for sure.
You can't guard against that virus.
You can't actually edit. We tried to edit him. He has some kind of software in his voice that you actually physically can't edit F-bombs out. So it's full of them. Yeah.
Yep. So yes.
Ooh, here's an idea.
People didn't know, though. You were explaining why people don't know one sentence earlier Rand Paul.
Oh, yeah, I was. Yeah, that's a thing we used to do. It hasn't happened in a while, but Rand Paul has this habit of saying some really good things and then adding something at the end that just is like, no, that's terrible. So
right. It was like, I remember the first one, I think one of the first was about gay marriage contract.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't believe that, I think people should have private contracts between two people. And you're like, correct. Oh, that's such a great idea. Great job, Brandon. He's like, but I'm also against gay marriage. Like, oh.
But I don't get this whole, it's like, Rand, you don't have to get it.
It's like, why don't you just stop talking, man?
Rand Paul 1 sentence earlier.
I don't have to get gay. I don't get gay marriage either.
That's what it was. I don't get women. Gay marriage. It's like,
I don't need to get it to agree to people's rights to do it.
No.
That's all.
It just doesn't affect me in any way, so I don't give a damn.
I don't get the Kurds either.
Yeah. Everybody should have their equal rights. That's fine.
It's a bad comparison, I guess. So what else is there? Is there any, I feel like we haven't had that much great news with Rand today. We got bad polls. We got a floppy filibuster. We got a good Halloween costume. So that's nice.
Floppy filibuster.
It's sad when his best thing this week is the only thing we can totally agree on is that he had his Halloween costume was good. And even that wasn't that great. He was just wearing a turtleneck.
Here's one I could say was really positive. I loved this when he was being interviewed and he said that his assessment of the Democratic race and the choice between the two, he goes, it's a choice between socialism and corruption.
Because it's basically down to Jim Webb has dropped out, Lincoln Chafee's dropped out.
O'Malley's at 2%.
O'Malley's
so he's
gone out for the next debate. He's just staying around to be Hillary's VP maybe or something like that. It's basically Hillary and Bernie, which is scary.
It is. It's terrible.
I don't know which. I want Bernie over Hillary if I got to choose one because Hillary is the most corrupt.
Would you take Hillary over the rest of the GOP field, Rand excluded?
No. I wouldn't take Hillary over anybody.
I don't think I could either.
She's my bottom candidate.
I completely
There's
agree.
not anyone I would want less than Hillary.
No, she's terrible. She's corrupt.
Period.
She's evil. She has horrible foreign policy. She's flip-flopped on every issue. She does not support gay rights. She does not support legalized marijuana.
But she does now.
Now she does, yeah.
But she does now.
It's just, she's awful. She's
but she
an awful
does
human
now.
being.
We were involved in the conversation this weekend. We won't name any names, but it was a friend of ours who, is for all these issues, gay marriage, legal marijuana, and he supports Hillary because, well, she says the right things now, and that's even if she's changed, at least even if it's just political, well, she's saying the right things now, and I don't know. I can't stand politicians that just say the right things now instead of saying the right things.
Agreed.
Period.
And you know what? The Democrats they need a podcast like this.
They really
They can look at Hillary Clinton objectively.
Clint on or off.
Boom! Clint on or off.
Man, we should say
I can't say that too fast. It sounds dirty.
No, we got
Clint on or off.
You really got to take your time,
that one.
enunciate every consonant and syllable.
Like, seriously, we looked at Rand Paul.
My dog Hawk is actually in the room. That's the scratching. I usually don't let him in the room, but I don't know. I'm just feeling really generous today. He's a big Rand Paul fan, so
give him a kick.
You might hear some jingling in the background.
Himself.
All right.
So
we're almost done, buddy.
Here's the thing: is we do this podcast. This podcast started because we're looking at the candidates. We say, okay, you know what, Rand Paul, he's got a lot of good points, but he has drawbacks, and he needs to be called out for those drawbacks. He needs to, if he's going to do something wrong, we need to talk about it. We need to say this is wrong, this is why. And Democrats or progressives in general refuse to do that for Hillary Clinton. They just look at her and they say, oh, well, we can explain this away. We can rationalize that away. My boss does the same thing. Our buddy Jamie does the same thing. They're always rationalizing.
So much for not calling him out. Oh, well.
They don't know who he is. So
he doesn't listen, and if he does
listen,
if he does, well, if he hears this, we'll know he listens. So
if he does,
it's a win-win.
If he listens, we'll have him on a libertarians and living rooms drinking liquor. He can be our voice of the
You hear that, Jamie?
Left.
If you hear this, you can come on the show, but you won't.
But they won't. They just refuse to look at it objectively and give her the negative assessment when it is due or appropriate.
At least with Bernie, and if you believe in all those same things, I can say I disagree with Bernie. I don't think he's right about things, but he's not this corrupt politician. He's not this guy who's had this insider career. Yeah, he's been in Congress for 30, 40 years, whatever. But he's not really an insider guy. There's no evidence that he's terribly corrupt to the level that the Clintons are. Yeah. So, yeah, of course, I'd rather see him there, even if his version of socialism might be worse. I don't know if it's worse. Hillary's is just hardcore fascism, basically. So they're both bad, and Rand is correct in his sort of analysis there. It's socialism or corruption. I think that's correct. Therefore, I give it a Paulus!
And I also give it a Paulus.
All right. So I think that's going to wrap up the show. One more thing I want to address, because the next time we're here together in the studio, I don't know if you'll be here or not, but I'm
not here for the GOP debate.
Okay, well, good, because I'm not saying good, I'm just saying. But that is the next time we'll be discussing Rand Paul, because I'm not going to discuss him in Monday's interview with Miss Lenore Skenazy. Tune in for that.
By the way, real quick, she's about. Tell me a little bit about her, real quick, because I think I like this woman.
Yes, Lenore Skenazy. Why don't I promote my own podcast? Yeah, she was actually once called America's worst mom for allowing her 9-year-old son to ride the subway home alone.
Yeah,
and the world flipped out about it. There's all these media stories, and she was on all these talk shows, and that's how she sort of achieved her notoriety or infamy to some people.
Free-range kids?
Free-range kids.
Yeah,
she runs the blog freerangekids.com. She writes for Reason about all these zero tolerance issues that are going on in schools. Every article you read on Reason is probably by her.
Yeah, Department of Children Services.
Her and Robbie
away people's kids. Because people now, they report children that are alone at a playground like 2 blocks away. I used to go around all the time to playgrounds on my bike everywhere.
I walked home a quarter mile or half a mile from my bus stop every day. I was home alone for 3 hours a day.
I used to go to my middle school was two miles away.
And look at us now.
Yeah.
Hosting a podcast, drinking some old smuggler.
Highly successful podcast
talking
millionaires.
About Rand Paul. We're actually independently
drinking
wealthy
old
from the
smuggler.
show. We don't like to talk about it. But what I do want to ask you before we sign off is, first of all, I don't think it's Rand's last stand, because I believe him when he says he's not going to get out till the votes are taken in like Iowa, because he does have a huge ground game there, and I don't see why they would put all that effort in just to drop out, especially when the polls aren't great, but nobody's polls are great really, except for I think if these Trump guys and these Carson guys are going to crash at some point, they got to go somewhere. So maybe they'll go to Rubio, maybe they'll go to Cruz, maybe some of them end up with Rand.
How early did all this crap start last time? Because I swear it did not start this early.
What do you mean?
like the whole election cycle and the surging and the.
No, it was pretty
debate.
much.
Was it because Ron Paul was in the debates and he lasted all the way virtually until the end? But I don't remember it starting until later on in the process, like after Iowa.
I don't think his polls were much better, to be honest.
Maybe there's.
But he did really well in Iowa. He actually won Iowa based on the delegates.
So that's exactly. Rand should stay in. I don't think it's his last stand either.
At least you got to be in through Iowa and New Hampshire. That's where his strongest support's going to be. Yep. And if you flame out there, then there's
right. Then you call it quits and you focus on the Senate.
But so the question is, what does Rand have to do in this next debate? Obviously, there's only so much under his control. They're going to put him on the end of the stage, or maybe not. If he still pulls slightly higher than Kasich, Christie, maybe he'll get moved up a little bit. Some of these guguys, I don't think they'll drop out before next Tuesday.
I think
debate's in a week.
But
before the next debate?
That soon, maybe.
I think they would have dropped out by now. I think everyone's going to be in the next debate.
The way Kasich looked last time, he might overdose.
He looked like he was coming off an all-night meth binge. Someday you're going to learn to turn off your cell phone notifications when we record a podcast. Today is not that day. So what does Rand need to do in the next debate?
I think he needs to stay aggressive. I liked the fact that he broke into the moderators. Now, granted, the next debate might be much more adequately moderated. He might have more of a chance. So I think
the next one's a Fox News or something.
I think he needs to touch upon justice reform.
Yes.
He's not touched upon it yet. No matter what, people do this all the time. No matter what the question is, he needs to work it into justice reform, because that is one place where he is vastly different from every other candidate, where he did all this work to embrace Black America, to talk about how the differentiation and the war on drugs attacks people of color much more differently than it attacks white people, and how the war on drugs is ruining people's lives and making this incarceration prison society that we have to get rid of. He needs to talk about it. He has not talked about it in 3 debates.
He's got to capture the sentiment that people like Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, Ben Carson are capturing, and that is the we might not know the answers, but we've got to change something sentiment. And Trump and Carson are truly political outsiders, but Bernie's been in a politician for 30, 40 years. So, now, if he can capture that, Rand Paul can too, as someone who's only been in the Senate for 4 years. And this is what I hear from people all the time. Everywhere I go when I talk about politics, all I hear is, we need some kind of change. We really need to change things. Some people say, even if it's for the worse. I'm like, how? Even if it's for the worse? Lot of sense. That makes no sense at all. Why would you want to change it even if it's for the worse? I don't get that. But that's the argument I hear from some Bernie people that are like, I don't know if this stuff's going to work, but at least it's changed. So Rand Paul has to capture that sentiment somehow, and maybe justice reform is one way to put it out there, tying a lot of these economic issues into the disparity that we see in black communities, how they're targeted by police, how the Fed and government policies and regulations and the government licensing, how these things all tie into this stuff. And he's capable intellectually of doing it, just a matter of he's able to work it into whatever questions he's given, whatever times he's given. I mean, when you give him an hour speech, he's able to touch on all these things really effectively, but the problem is most Americans aren't sitting down watching our speeches. They're watching the reality show known as the debates, and I don't even know how to overcome the fact that most people base their opinions solely on these circuses, and maybe it's our fault for covering them with live blogs and podcasts, but if we're not, this is when people are paying attention. This is why we talk about Rand Paul. This is why we talk about the debates, because this is what people are paying attention to right now, so we got to strike while the iron's hot and get as many people talking about at least the important issues as we possibly can.
So on that note, please share this podcast, people. Please
there you go.
Please help us out. Help everybody else out. Become educated on these issues. Please do also respond to us. We want to hear from you. Tweet back at us. Email through. You can email us
Randy Pants.
You can email us at.
You can email us through our contact form. You can email me, Mark MARC at lionsliberty.com.
Contact form.
So many ways you can listen to the show. LibertyTalk.fm, 6 p.m. Eastern, every Saturday and Sunday. LRN.fm, the Liberty Radio Network, all throughout the week. YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher.
You can come over to my house, just listen to it.
Go to Brian's house, just listen straight off the phone.
On my hi-fi.
Yeah.
My speakers.
All right. So yeah, tune in next week. Lenore Skenazy on Monday, followed by on Thursday, our reaction to the latest GOP debate. And then next weekend, we got a Democrat debate on a Saturday. Oh my God. The things we do for you people. But we're gonna keep doing them. And until then, folks, why don't you just take a little of our advice and live long and live free. Every day we're filibustering. Filibustering. One sentence earlier. All right, peace.
Head of editing and mastering is John Dauber.
Contact Johnny53 at gmail.com.